be in the shelter those 4 of the 5 days each week?
No.
So what are we talking about in terms of staffing of the shelter there? That's question number 1.
Okay.
And the other one is, how does this make use of the facility in Anderson Valley with the support there that we have? Is there any change? Does that change any of the dynamics in terms of holding, releasing, transferring of animals? And that's, I think, somewhat fairly important in terms of their role in this whole change.
Regarding Anderson Valley, there is no expectation of a change in what's happening at Anderson Valley. Okay. That doesn't figure into this equation at all. Regarding the animal control officers, certainly it's not a good use of the precious time that we have for the animal control officers to actually have them working in the shelters, cleaning cages, whatever. So that's not the intent. With the control officers moving to the sheriff department, being outstationed and working with the other sheriff deputies, we anticipate that there will be more coverage and a greater service with the control officers. Regarding the staffing of the shelter, what we are finding, Supervisor Colfax, right now is that all of our services to our most vulnerable populations, women, children, and our animals, are all threatened right now. And so what we're looking at is, how do we keep this shelter open for the money that we have, which essentially is all general fund dollars to run this shelter? We have 2 staff. Currently, we are running this shelter with 2 staff. What we anticipate in the future is that we will have to cut the hours of the shelter. We're talking about Fort Bragg specifically now, but we're also looking at Ukiah. When we look at all the services we have in the agency right now, unless we do some restructuring, redesign, we're going to have difficulty providing the same level or even a somewhat reduced level of service. So we are looking at either reducing the hours or reducing the shelter hours by 1 day being open.
Okay, and then that leads me to the concern. And excuse me for just
Sure.
being so scattered here, but there are a number of different issues. And that is, if your animal control officer is out in the field, picks up an animal, and takes them where? To Ukiah when it's not operating, when there's nobody at the shelter in Fort Bragg? Are they expected to do that, or will they have the job of taking the animal in, feed, water, cage,
Sure.
and wait until somebody comes in the next day? I'm just trying to
Sure. No, it's a good question, and certainly for the purposes of the public as well. There may be others that are wondering as well. You know, the shelter is not open 24/7 now. So if an animal control officer or even a sheriff deputy pick up an animal in the off hours, they can drop that animal off at the shelter. We also, the control officer certainly can get into the shelter and drop an animal off as needed. So, you know, in the rarest instances, certainly the shelter can be called if there was a need. We have our animal control administrator who is available 24/7 and has been called by public safety after hours when she has been needed regarding picking up an animal, dropping off an animal, or some type of an assessment with the animal. We don't anticipate that will change. Okay.
Any other questions, board members? Any members of the public want to speak on this issue? Okay, so I guess we just want to accept this report and take no action of the board. Thank you, Carmen.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Okay, with that, we'll move to item number 8.
Mr. Chair, we did have some items left over from yesterday, some housekeeping items, and I requested we take those sooner rather than later. The approval of the action plan, the meeting schedule, and the revised rules.
Okay, you want to do that?
Well, I want to make sure we get them done today.
Well, we'll get them all done here if nobody calls the 5:30 rule.
We have a 5:30?
So we can move that up to the Yeah, it's all this,
Right.
yeah. Which is a priority to start with? I mean, we can change this around. I was just going to go right on down the list.
2 hours.
Well, I think we should.
You want to do rules of procedure?
I'd like to go ahead and finish these 3 kind of housekeeping items at this time before we start a new involved discussion on other items. That was just kind of my thought.
Which housekeeping?
Well, in the order they were presented yesterday, we would start with the action plan, then the master meeting schedule, and then the rules.
Then a break.
Huh?
Then a break. We need a break.
You want the break first or after? And
I didn't think we need a direction on the action plan.
Well, we did.
well, we went through it. We didn't take final action, was my understanding.
Ms. Glass indicated she'll be on her way in here in a few minutes. I think you accepted the action plan yesterday. We didn't recognize that as a continued item. There was no action
Yeah.
required on it. But we do have some proposed amendments to the master meeting schedule as a result. So I'm not sure if Allison will be bringing in an updated product for you today, or she'll make that available to
Okay,
you.
while we're waiting on that, why don't we just move to 8C, and then we'll move down to the master schedule.
Well, or we could do the rules, since Janine is ready to go with that.
Are you ready to go with the rules?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to, continuing from January, the board workshop discussion of possible action, including adoption of resolution adopting Board of Supervisors revised rules of procedure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A number of us have spent a considerable, well, not a considerable, we've spent time on revising the rules, basically in an effort to clean up language, order, and put them in a way that is more readable to the public and to the board members. But what you have before you is the revised set of rules, and I don't think we need to go line by line through every change. So what I've done is I've highlighted those areas that would be more of a policy decision for you with respect to the rules. And in an effort to save time, I think those are the only areas we really need to focus on. Like I said, the rest of it's really just cleanup language. And that begins on page 3 of 14 with rule number 4. And then certain procedures that we've added and changed that I think that you should discuss before taking any action. So I don't know how you want to start with this.
I think if you just swiftly took us through the highlighted areas.
Okay, that's fine. With respect to rule number 4, missing from the rule historically was the procedure for the event in which the chair and the vice chair were absent. We didn't know who would be in charge. So we added the last sentence to that rule, and you can see that on your highlighted version, to reflect that in the event the chair and vice chair are absent from the meeting, the senior member present shall preside until either the chair or vice chair appears. And that doesn't necessarily mean the oldest person on the board, it just means the most senior board member would preside until the chair or vice chair would return.
And this replaces language that used to be in place for a chair pro tem being selected at each meeting occurrence.
Right. On page 4 of 14, that's where we address the 5:30 rule. And you may want to take a moment to read that if you haven't.